Hello, welcome to another walkie talkie. So it's 23rd of December. This is the penultimate one before Christmas. Now, what I'm going to do today, I'm actually going to record back-to-back walkie-talkies today. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and that is because tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to have the time to be able to come out and do this. Hopefully I will, but there's a chance I may not. So rather than leave this sort of trilogy of Christmas episodes undone, you know, if I wait till tomorrow and I can't come out and do this, if I'm tied up and too busy, then it's not going to get done before Christmas. I want to. So I'm going to record back to back, and then if I can come out tomorrow and do an episode, I'm going to have one in the as a backup, as it were. And if not, well, it don't matter, because I'll be I won't have missed it. I just don't want to miss putting one up tomorrow. So that's what I'm going to try and do. And like I say, if I do get a chance tomorrow, I'll have a bonus one in the bag. But yeah, I was just thinking this morning when I was getting ready to come out, I was quite busy yesterday. It's why that walkie-talkie was late going up. I was having to keep breaking away from doing the editing to do things. So by the time I'd done all the editing, it was late on in the day. But then of course you have to wait for the thing to process before you upload it, and you export it, you have to wait for it to render. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll just do this in two parts. So you're not going to get this bit tomorrow, because I'm not going on the walk and then going all the way back and then coming doing it again. I'm just going to pick up from where I left off. So this could be the last walk down here before Christmas, and I've not had to go onto the side bit. Amazing. Now I feel all hauled off nicely, weather-wise. It may make life a lot easier. It's going to be strange coming down here in the sort of late spring and summer. You know, where you're not wearing layers of clothing and what have you. That's going to be interesting. We'll be able to watch these videos and just see, you know, how different it looks. You know, as particularly going through spring, as everything starts to come back to life. That'd be nice. So anyway, that's my plan. That's a squirrel. And yeah, hopefully it'll all click into place. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be lovely? So we're going to move on today. Well, the first part, we're going to talk about a Commodore Amiga 600 that I got. And I'm also going to incorporate with this one the things I got from a better half, the great stuff that she got me games wise or game system wise in and around Christmas, or certainly got stuff that was for Christmas, but I may have received it as an early present. So we're going to cover them, and then the second part is going to be like a little jog back to just after the Amiga, where I'm going to talk about getting the PlayStation and getting the PS4. So I'll see you then. Alright, so here we are, and it's Christmas 1992, although it isn't when I'm recording this, but it is for the period of time that I'm going to be talking about. So, Christmas 92. At this point, I've still got my Commodore 64, but my Sega Master System has been replaced by Mega Drive about a year prior to this. He called it the Genesis in the United States. So I'd already gone on to the 16-bit bandwagon at this point, but my C64, even though it wasn't the one I got back in 85, it's still getting on a bit, and I'm not really using it that much. Not for games, and certainly not for doing anything else. It's not disconnected or at the back of a cupboard. It's just out on a desk in my room with a dust cover on it. And at this point, I'm thinking I need a new computer. Yeah, I wanted to get back computer gaming, but also, do it using other applications. The games console, you couldn't do that back then. It was just games. That was pretty much it. Now, the two options available were a PC back then or a Commodore Amiga. Those were the only really two viable options available for me. I couldn't afford a PC. That was just a non-starter. So the only option I had was an Amiga, but they were still too expensive. Now, the sort of rule went, no gifts over 300 quid. Well, that pretty much ruled out the Amiga at this point because it was 400. Now, I'd just finished school, and it was, my intent was to take a year out before going off to university. Things didn't pan out that way, but that was my intent. But that summer, I'd learned to drive, I got a car, and I did have a part-time job. Now, a part-time job, previous to me getting a car, had actually allowed me to save up and buy the Mega Drive. So at this point, the last electronic computer / console gift that I'd received at Christmas had been my Commodore C64C, which I think was in 1988, 89. So I'm thinking, well, I can't afford to save up for an Amiga. That's just a non-starter. However, so I was out with my dad, and it's a little while before Christmas, but probably early, maybe it was about a week or two, maybe a week into December. I went out shopping and I needed to pick up cable. I had a Sky box in my room. Well, I didn't have a Sky box, we had a Sky system downstairs, and I had what they called a Magic Eye. No, it wasn't a Magic Eye then. What am I talking about? I had a splitter from the back of the box downstairs, and a cable went up into my room upstairs, so I could watch Sky upstairs. I still had to go downstairs and change the channel on the box. Hang on, did I have that in 90? No, I didn't. No, I'm completely misremembering that. No, that was when I got the PlayStation. Oh my God, I'm getting old. Hang on a minute, we didn't get that till 94, 95. Yeah, no, scratch that. No, what was the cable? Oh, it was for my VCR, that was right. I needed a new cable for my VCR. The one that I had that was going into the back of the TV. The end was wobbly and the picture kept going, oh God, and I'll get it there in the end. It's age, it comes to all of you. Stop laughing. So I went into a store called Tandy, which was, in the UK, was like the equivalent of Radio Shack. It sold everything electrical. And I went in there to get an RF antenna lead, a new one. And when I was in there, they had a Commodore Amiga 600, which had just come out a few months before. And they were selling it with £100 off. So it was, when it came out, it was $399.99. They were selling it at $299.99, and it was the Lemmings pack. It came with Lemmings and Deluxe Paint 3. So my dad was with me, and I was just like, it's in the price range. He sort of looked at me, he's like, I thought it was going to be a cheap Christmas this year. And to cut a long story short, I got it. I was made up. I'd wanted an Amiga since it come out in 1985. When I would see some of the graphics on the games on the Amiga back then, they were amazing. They really were incredible. But they were hugely expensive. The Amiga, I think, was like £1,000 when it first come out. And the Amiga 500 was like 400-500 quid. I don't know, I can't remember. It was way out of my price range, and so I just used to admire it from afar. So, in seeing this, it's like suddenly you've got this awesome opportunity to get a new computer. And at that, what I still perceive to be a very powerful computer. And it still was. The Amiga was a great piece of technology. It was an awesome piece of kit. Now, I didn't really know much at the time. Not really done much in the way of research because, well, all things being even, at the time, I didn't think I was going to get one. So, but in speaking to the guy in Tandy, he said, well, the Amiga 600 has replaced the Amiga 500 Plus. It's a new version of it. And of course, like the sales pitch is, it's got, improved this, that, and the other. I think it had more RAM, I don't know. Like I say, I didn't know much about it. Most I knew about the Amiga was it was 16-bit, it had a great sound chip, it was powerful, and it had a load of games that I'd been desperate to play. That's what I knew about the Amiga. So naturally I'm sold on this. I'm completely over the moon, completely ecstatic. I've got an Amiga. Finally, you know. So much time having wanted one. I finally got it. So, you know, it's like waiting at Christmas for this thing. I get it, you unwrap it, set it up, and off I go. Playing Lemmings, which was a lot of fun. Messing around with Deluxe Paint 3, which was great. And I had, well, I can't remember the name of the game. It was like a flight simmy type game, although it wasn't. You sort of managed the combat. It wasn't carrier command. It was a relatively new game at the time. It came in this really big box, as most games did back then on the Amiga. Small 3.5-inch floppy disks, big bloody massive cardboard box. I'm trying to remember the name of this game. I just remember the box was really nice, and it had an intro where there's like this advanced jet fighter comes out of the hangar, and it's all like super smooth animation. It looks amazing, you know. This sort of cutscene looked better than what I'd seen on the Mega Drive. I'm thinking, oh yeah. Anyway, got that, and then got some games. I got Lotus 3, which is a racing game. There's like Lotus Esprit, I think, and then Lotus 2, Lotus 3. I got Lotus 3. And Sensible Soccer, the first one. Boy, two amazing games. I love them. Sensible Soccer, of course, they were the little sprites, but it was super smooth. And you saw a lot of the screen now. I'd played Microprose Soccer on the C64, and you would only see quite a small amount of the screen. And obviously the sprites were quite big, because it was lower resolution. Sensible Soccer was just, it was brilliant. I just was playing it. And then I put in, like, I say, Lotus 3. Brilliant sound in that game. Music was incredible. And I was having a lot of fun with it. Really enjoying it. Then came going out and buying games. And of course there was a lot of old Amiga games that I'd wanted. You know, that I'd had to watch from a distance for many years. And here's where the issue came. I started to get some of these games, and a lot of them were on budget labels back then, so they were about £5. I think the Amiga, was it 5 or 10? Because the games were normally £20 to £25 on the Amiga. Was it 5 or 10? I guess it just depended on the age of the game and the label it came out on. And I remember getting RoboCop. I was loaded it up, started playing. I was like, oh yes, brilliant. And then it crashed. I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Bearing in mind, RoboCop crashed on the C64 as well. And I could play it, but it was a little bit unstable. At least it was playable. But then there was some other games that I was getting, and these tended to be the older Amiga games. And they wouldn't work. They wouldn't load. I'm like, what's going on here? I'd bought, I thought, is it the floppy drive? Well, I bought a secondary floppy drive. That prevented you from having to keep swapping discs, which was a pain in the arse. So, because some Amiga games came on multiple discs, you'd have the program disc, and then you'd have the disc with all the data on it, which would be like the levels. So I got a secondary floppy drive. They weren't that expensive, to be honest. And I was able to cobble together money from like birthday money and stuff like that. But it was clear that we had a problem. And it wasn't that my Amiga was malfunctioning. It was that there was compatibility issues between Amiga 500 and Amiga 600 software. Sorry, Amiga 500 games, especially their earlier ones, and the Amiga 600. Now, I don't know whether this was to do with issues with the new version of Workbench that they'd rolled out, or whether it was to do with the chipset. I don't know. But it was really disappointing. There were some games that I couldn't play, that I'd wanted to play, that I'd been desperate to play, and they just wouldn't work. And then the other thing as well, I had to be careful because there were some games that needed the numerical keypad, and the Amiga 600 didn't have one. So it was not long after I'm starting to get, obviously it's not buyer's remorse because I didn't buy it, but I'm starting to feel a little bit let down. And it was at that time my sort of love of Commodore started to fracture. As I started to read up more about this, they had released, earlier in 1992, they discontinued the Amiga 500 and introduced the Amiga 500 Plus, which was basically the same computer with a few minor changes to it. And in the same year, they discontinued that and launched the Amiga 600 to replace the 500 Plus. So the Amiga 500 Plus was actually, and in actually researching that this morning before I come out, was the shortest Amiga computer. It was only out for a few months. What the hell were Commodore thinking? Why didn't they just leave the 500 Plus? I'm pretty certain that the issues that I was having wouldn't have had those issues had I got a 500 Plus instead of the 600. Certainly in terms of not having the numerical keypad. I mean, there wasn't a huge number of games that was a problem with, but again, it's self-inflicted issues. So I love the Amiga, but there was then things that I noticed. I had Alien 3 on the Mega Drive, and there was a demo of Alien 3 for the Amiga. So the Amiga on paper was more powerful, certainly audio-wise, it was better than the Mega Drive. So I thought, I'll play the demo, thinking it'd be better. And it was really much the same. But actually, there were some bits in the Amiga that were different to the Mega Drive. Now, they were minor things, but they were there nonetheless. There's a section in Alien 3 where you're jumping over these pits that have fans in. On the Mega Drive, the fans are spinning. So there's a visual clue there that you don't want to dive down there because, you're going to end up in trouble. And On the Amiga, the fans are not moving. There's no fan animation. Now, in fairness, that could have been just the demo. And I never played the game. I never bought it. I had it on the Mega Drive, so I wasn't going to buy it on the Amiga. But it was like, well, what's going on? Why aren't they animated? The Amiga surely can do this. And I think it was just like a quick conversion job, to be honest with you. I think they just threw it out there as a quick job. They didn't really optimize it. So I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Why they did that, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But and then there was other things as well. Like I say, a lot of the older games that I wanted to play, I couldn't. They just wouldn't load. And again, I never really got to the bottom of it, whether it was a workbench issue or whether it was a chipset issue. In theory, it shouldn't have been. It wasn't using the AGA chipset that the Amiga 1200 used. I think it was the ECS, the enhanced chipset that the 500 was using. So I don't know, but it was a pain, and it was very, very annoying. And the other thing as well, and I think one of the things that, touching upon it there with having the Mega Drive, I'd already made the jump into the 16-bit era. I'd already been playing stuff like Sonic, Golden Axe, Road Rash, stuff like that. I don't know if I'd played Desert Strike at that point, but in any event, I'd already played them. And so I didn't quite get the leap forward. I didn't quite get that I would have had, had I just gone from the C64 to the Amiga. That probably would have been a lot more impactful. So, although that there was some stuff that was more impressive, on the whole, there was a lot of stuff. It wasn't as impressive. It wasn't like stuff I hadn't seen before. It was all a bit, well, yeah, I've seen this before. So, I love the Amiga, don't get me wrong. I had many great games. Sensible World of Soccer, when that came out, getting that still is one of my favourite football games of all time. Its roster of teams and tournaments absolutely puts FIFA to shame. Cannon Fodder, absolutely fantastic game. Chaos Engine, these are some of my favourite games of all time. Absolutely love them. But there was no escaping the fact that there was a degree of disappointment in some elements with it. Some of it my fault, and some of it definitely lay at the feet of Commodore for really not using the loaf when doing things. But overall, I did love the Amiga. I have the A500 Mini, and that has enabled me to play a lot of the old Amiga games because it emulates various different Amigas. So, I'm enjoying it. Unfortunately, a couple of years after getting it, it packed in on me one day. One of the chips blew, I think, on the board. It wouldn't boot up. Whether it was the Kickstarter ROM chip or whatever, I don't know. It wouldn't boot up. I turn it on and it was just a black screen. I did get it repaired, but it was one of them jobbies, you know, where it got repaired and it never really worked properly. The floppy drive was noisy and was a bit unreliable. It sort of come back from repair and the caps lock key wouldn't work properly, you know, it wouldn't engage. Little things like that, and I'm like, oh, are we starting to develop what they like a cascading error? So after a couple of years, I bought a second-hand Amiga 1200, which tided me over until I was able to get the first PC from the place where I was working at the time. If you remember, the boss giving me the PC, the Pentium 100. So it worked until, you know, I had an Amiga until then. But my 500 Mini has enabled me to enjoy playing those old Amiga games, many of which wouldn't work. You know, some of them are actually on the carousel. So, yeah, a lot of enjoyment has been gained, and I do love the Amiga. It was the bad timing. If I'd have gotten it a couple of years earlier, certainly before the Mega Drive, I would have been more blown away. It would have been a much bigger step up. That's for certain. A much bigger step up from the Commodore 64. And that was what the intention was. Like I say, it was my fault. I went and got a Mega Drive. And had already jumped into the 16-bit ocean, as it were. It wasn't the Amiga's fault. I mean, that predated the Mega Drive. And like I say, if I'd have gotten the Amiga, you know, let's just say 1990, if I'd have got the one with the Batman game, I probably would have been absolutely blown away. You know, it would have been an incredible experience. So that was that. And from the Amiga, then that was it until the PlayStation. But we'll come to that, because we're gonna take a bit of a leap forward right now. We're gonna go from Christmas '92 to more recent years. So I want to talk about the Grafx16 that my missus got me a few years ago now. Now, it wasn't at Christmas, but it was for Christmas. And there was a company that was selling this on eBay. And this company, these were, obviously they weren't new, but they were unopened. It was obviously unused stock, unopened stock. And she bought me one. I'd never owned one of these. I knew of them. I knew it as the PC Engine. But in the UK, they were, God, I'm gonna put my neck out here and say they were called the Grafx16 in the UK. I think they were definitely called that in the US. And the reason I'm not sure is because in the UK, when I got it, there was like a pack that came with it that enabled you to use it in the UK. So I'm not sure whether that was because it was an import or that was how it was distributed in the UK. I'm not sure. I didn't know a lot about it. I'd just heard of it. Now, What an amazing little console this was. And I think if this console, it's not little actually. I mean, the PC Engine was, but the Grafx16 version is bigger. The PC Engine was like a little white square thing. The Grafx16 is like a rectangular grey console. So I think if they'd have released this properly, like full on, I think it would have been really successful. Graphically, it's very impressive for the system that it is. And it has quite a lot of like original style games for it. It also has some arcade conversions. Now, on my channel, you'll see there's a number of videos that I've uploaded regarding this console, so games that I've played. It actually has a version of Chase HQ on there that isn't rubbish. You'll see that on there. You'll also see me being rubbish on some of the games, but they're brilliant. They're a lot of fun to play. I was really blown away by it actually, and I enjoy playing on it. You know, it's my hope that at some point I can have a proper games room where I can have, you know, all my stuff set up properly. Currently I have to keep taking it out of the box and packing it away and taking it out and packing away, and those are things I'm never overly keen on doing, simply because of the sort of wear it puts on the cable and what have you. I love playing it. Go check out them videos if you want to see what it's like. Say, I have a lot of fun with it. And what is really cool is, as opposed to cartridges, the games come on these like cards. They're a little bit bigger than a credit card and a little bit thicker than a credit card. And the Sega Master System had one of these ports on it. They did have a few games on the Master System that come out on these cards. But yeah, it's worth checking out. Well worth checking out. It's a lot of fun to play. The next thing that she got me was what was then called the Occulus 2 VR headset. Now, what's interesting about that is initially I was a bit with VR. I wasn't exactly bowled over by it. And it truly is one of them experiences that you need to experience it. It's not an easy thing to tell somebody, because it's the level of immersion that it brings, and the way that it's transformative in how you play games. And you know, there's other things you can do with it as well. Until you've actually put it on and started to use it, it's difficult to explain it, to be honest. Except the fact that for me, it was an incredible experience. It's so enjoyable and immersive. And even just going into the sort of your home screen, where you can select which sort of environment you want. I've got this sort of tree house, this big treetop tree house place. Even just messing around in there, it's great. Now, I wear glasses, and that was one of the things I thought, well, this isn't going to work for me. But it does. It does. I mean, not only can you adjust the lenses, but, you know, if needs be, you can actually, if you get your prescription, you can have lenses put into it. Or, in my case, I have a pair of glasses that are actually quite small. and I can actually wear it with them on, and it works. It's not uncomfortable, it doesn't hurt, but they are a small pair of glasses. So, and it's brilliant. I've enjoyed playing a lot of games on there. So yeah, I love it. So, that's going to wrap up that part. Now I am mindful that these are possibly going to be a bit shorter, but this, like I say, I'm going to do back-to-back ones. I am mindful of it as well. It starts getting busier in here. So I'm going to crack on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to end this one. Thank you all for watching it. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back now. Remember that it's not going to be a park intro for this because I'm doing this back to back. So we're going to carry on in here. But yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.